You can over communicate, you can under communicate, but those happen due to the expectations that you have set forth. And so I think that's super important. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, and I want to talk about communication. First of all, Happy New Year. And man, 2025, it's going to be an amazing year. It's going to be exciting. I think there's going to be some interesting things that happen in 2025. Obviously, we've got a new president. So a changeover in political climate. We've got just a lot of stuff going on in the multifamily industry in particular, in the commercial real estate industry in particular. I think it'll be interesting to see how single family homes play out. I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the stock market. I believe there's going to be a bit of a reckoning. If you look at the stock market and just look at historicals, we are very far from the historical kind of performance of the stock market. And in my opinion, it's just extremely overvalued, right? These companies are not worth nearly what people are, I guess, influencing. And so I think we're in for a big correction in the stock market in 2025. See, I also thought it was going to happen in 2024, so I was wrong for that. Well, let's talk about the topic of the day, which is communication. And I want to talk about communication. There's a couple things when we talk about communication. First of all, for communication, the very first and most important part is setting expectations. So communication, you can over communicate, you can under communicate, but those happen due to the expectations that you have set forth. And so I think that's super important. So you need to make sure, and when I'm talking, communication. So we communicate a lot with our passive investors. We communicate a lot with our employees, with our staff. We communicate a lot with our property management companies, our real estate brokers that we do business with. And so communication with them is really important. But when we talk about setting up expectations, we have to make sure that people are on the same page as we are. And we have to set up the right expectations going into it. So when I think about when we raise money for a deal, a lot of the industry says, well, you need to overraise by 20, 30, 40%. Like you're going to have a ton of people that drop out. Well, in our case, we have a 95+% success ratio. So like we are raising pretty much the exact amount. So we just did a raise. We just closed on a property on Friday the 20th. And we raised $9.8 million. We had committed to that project $9,850,000. We had one investor that dropped out, and they dropped out pretty much. They made their commitment, and then they realized the deal actually didn't work for them because it was for accredited investors only. So they dropped out because they were not accredited investors. They only had their commitment in for a very short period of time. And then they saw, oh shoot, this does not work for me. I gotta back out. So it really didn't affect our raise at all. It wasn't like they backed out at the last minute, nothing like that. But we have communicated with our investors that's the expectation, that when you put a commitment in, you put a commitment in. Like you are going to invest in this opportunity, and don't put a commitment in if you're not serious. Like we want people that aren't wishy-washy. We want investors that make decisions and move forward with the decisions they make, right? That's what our expectations are. We've communicated that with our investors. We also communicate throughout the process, right? So investors don't just get their commitment in and then never hear from us until the day it closes. One of the things I learned, and I've talked about this in the past, is I was doing a flip, right? And I had this guy that was going to fund my flip. And, we agreed on everything, and we get ready to close. And I'm like, hey, you got to wire that money. He's like, what are you talking about? And that almost killed the deal because I didn't communicate with him after. We had a fairly loose agreement. We didn't sign anything. It was just the expectation that he was going to invest in this deal. All my investors in the past that I've used, we just did a handshake agreement as well, and they always invested. So this guy, hadn't invested with me before. He did a handshake agreement with me, and then I didn't talk to him after that. Right? I didn't talk to him until like I needed the money. Hey, I got to have that money now. What do you mean? I don't have. I'm didn't hear from you. I didn't even know this was a deal. So I ended up getting that deal closed, but it was a scramble and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was poor expectations, right? Poor communication, poor expectations. So now we set up specific expectations. Investor makes a commitment, right? They have to sign the subscription agreement. They get all the wiring instructions. They have to, or they get an email right when they set everything up. That they're in, that they committed to the deal. They're getting reminders to sign that subscription agreement. We send out some updates throughout and before we close. So there's pre-communication. And then after we close, we also set up an expectation that, hey, this is our, when we're going to be sending out investor distributions. Expect your first distribution to be here. And by the way, even prior to that, just in our offering, we've already set that up as well. Right? We tell investors like, this is when you're going to see your first distribution, or we expect to see it. This is when we communicate with you. This is how often we communicate with you. Our cadence, and then when we close, we do the exact same thing. And so investors know what to expect, and that way they're not surprised, right? If you communicate we communicate on a monthly basis, so usually it's not a problem anyways, because most people don't expect you to communicate more than monthly. But there's a lot of groups that communicate quarterly. Well, if you've invested in one of my deals and you're used to monthly communication, and then you invest in somebody else's deal that does quarterly, you're going, what the heck's going on? Why aren't they communicating with me? Unless that group set the expectation to begin with. Hey, we communicate quarterly. This is what we do. This is how it looks. Okay, now we're good, right? So we're not surprised. So we do the same thing with our real estate brokers. I look at the real estate brokers, and we try to over communicate at the beginning. And it's about setting expectations up. It's about them understanding what we're looking for, what we're doing, how we're doing it. And so we make sure when we communicate with these brokers that it's like, hey, this is the type of property we're looking for. These are the deals we buy. This is how much. These are some of our previous deals. We're setting expectations. We are a buyer that doesn't like to retrade. We are really, you can see by our track record. Here's some of our referrals. Like you can see from these other brokers that we close deals, we get deals done. We are kind of almost the the group you go to after the deal falls apart once or twice, and you say, hey, we need a closer. Who do we go to? We go to Endurance Capital, because we know they can close, because they've clearly communicated that with us, and we understand who they are as a buyer group. We understand they're not going to come in as the highest offer nearly ever. Right. We understand that, we know that, but we know who they are as a group, and we know we can get a deal done with these people. And so that's the expectation. That's the communication that we provide with them. We also communicate with them when we get deals from other brokers, when anything changes in our buying criteria, anything that we're looking for, we're always communicating with them. So I think that's super important, that we want to, again, set up expectations. That's the biggest part, in my opinion, of clear communication is clear expectations. I look at it in our assisted living business. And there's all kinds of problems we had at the beginning. Employees quitting, getting mad, just things not working out. People doing things that our expectations were that you'd do something differently. Well, it all stemmed with poor expectations, poor communication upon expectations. We didn't have a clear set of expectations. So once we started implementing clear expectations, and this is who we are hiring. Here's who we're hiring. Here's the mindset that we have. Here's our culture, and we're setting that up and we're create that culture. And now we have success because there's clear communication and there's clear expectations. This is how you show up and be successful at VitaCare Living. And this is how you show up and be unsuccessful and lose your job quickly at VitaCare Living. We know what we're looking for. We know who we want. So we have clear expectations for our staff. We have clear expectations for hiring new staff. And when they come in, they know our expectations and know it really well, right? And so it's, again, setting that up and then communicating that throughout, and everything, every part of our communication with them is about the culture. And it's always about, these 7 attributes that we push for the company. And so I think that's really, really valuable. Anybody, if you're looking to hire people, it's setting up those clear expectations. What can you do? What's our company look like? What do we want from our employees, right? What do we want to be known as a group, as a company? How do we do that? Look, recently I had, a dealing, and I try not to dive too much into it because I don't want to put this person down, but I had a dealing with this person who clearly didn't set up good expectations and clearly didn't communicate well with the people he was trying to work with. And it showed because everything was late, right? His clients, every single thing was done late. And this person was upset at us for some reason. I think it was more just embarrassment and trying to figure out how to save face, but upset at us because they didn't do things to the correct expectations. Now, can I take some blame? Sure. Yeah, we should have probably communicated better with that person that these are our true expectations, and we did say this is exactly what needs to happen, but we need to more clearly. And I've already said I'm setting up a meeting. And look, if you're going to do business with us in the future, you need to follow these expectations like this. That's it. And you need to set up clear communication and expectations with your clients in order for us to all be successful together. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, right? All right. So I guess that's really the main core of this conversation is communication starts with setting up clear expectations, right? I think over communicating our expectations from the beginning is going to be the key, the real ingredient to having successful communication with others and having a successful transaction, whatever that means, or relationship, whatever that is, right? If I am expecting you to coach me and you're going to be my fitness coach, and I have expectations of what I want, but you don't tell me what's going to actually happen, I've made it up in my mind of what we're going to do. And it's going to be really challenging for you to meet me where I need to be because I've already set up my expectations because you never did it for me, right? You never said, hey, you hire me and you're going to get this, this, and this. Like, no, you didn't do that. You didn't set those expectations up. So I'm expecting something totally different from this relationship. I'm expecting more likely from you, and you're going to fail. It's just going to be the case. So set up clear, defined expectations, and then deliver upon those. So obviously communicate clearly throughout. Make sure you don't have lapses. I think just the consistency is the biggest thing. Set it up in a calendar. Make sure that the consistency is happening. If you're communicating once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever that is, but set it up so it's got a clear cadence, so it's consistent every single time. All right. That's all I got for today. You have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.